July 2nd, 2025. Despite warnings from the US, Russia launched over 50 heavy missiles along with a swarm of armored machines, 24 T-90M tanks, 18 T-80 BVMs, and 9 Terminator support vehicles against Ukraine's eastern defenses in under 30 minutes. The ground shook from 90 separate blasts. In just 6 brutal hours, Ukraine's defenses were torn apart, suffering heavy losses. From above, Lancet drones flew in like guided wolves, speeding at 100 miles per hour to hunt down artillery. But the United States was furious. The unthinkable had happened, but not the way Russia planned. Instead of rolling forward in triumph, the Russian attack was thrown into chaos. 9 T-90M tanks were blown up, 7 Terminators destroyed by drones, 15 BMPs abandoned, and nearly 300 Russian troops killed or wounded in fields they thought they would conquer. So, what flipped this powerful iron spear into a fiery graveyard? What unseen force turned Russia's biggest offensive since 2022 into a disaster written in metal and fire? Come with me and you'll find out. Because once you see it, you'll never look at modern warfare the same way again. At exactly 4:17 a.m. local time, July 2nd, 2025, the fields near Kharkov and Donetsk exploded as Russian missiles hit. Without waiting for further talks or warnings from NATO, the Kremlin unleashed its full strength. Tornado-S missile systems, each able to launch 12 massive cluster warheads, fired non-stop. In the first half hour alone, over 50 missiles smashed into Ukrainian trenches, command centers, and supply points. The ground shook with over 80 blasts, ripping apart bunkers and burning fuel convoys. Overhead, Lancet 3 suicide drones, guided by onboard AI, slammed into Ukrainian radar sites, destroying several M777 howitzers and 2 counter-battery radar units in minutes. Orlan 10 recon drones mapped out every move Ukraine made, sending real-time info straight to Russian fire control centers. Then came the wave of tanks and armored vehicles, 57 in total, including 24 T-90Ms, 18 T-80 BVMs, and 6 Terminators. Behind them rolled infantry carriers full of assault troops, ready to move in after the missiles cleared the way. The thermal cameras on the T-90Ms scanned the smoking tree lines for fleeing soldiers. By sunrise, the Russian forces had pushed 3 miles into Ukrainian territory. The damage was immediate. Reports from the front counted more than 30 Ukrainian troops killed and another 90 hurt. Many had to be pulled from the rubble of bunkers still burning from white phosphorus. Drone footage showed at least 9 destroyed armored vehicles, 4 Leopard 2A6 tanks caught refueling, and 5 APCs wrecked under fallen trees. Grain silos and fuel depots that once fed the region were now black skeletons, billowing smoke into the summer sky. Cluster bombs also hit power stations, cutting off electricity to tens of thousands in Donetsk. Convoys of civilians jammed narrow roads trying to flee west. In less than 6 hours, Russia had caused more damage to Kharkov's defenses than in any attack since 2022. For Moscow, it was a bold bet: smash Ukraine fast, before the West could react. But the Kremlin had no idea that its brutal start would wake something far more dangerous hiding just beyond the horizon. Still with me? Don't go anywhere. The real turning point is just ahead. As Russian armor pushed deeper into Kharkov's broken lines, the long-awaited American response finally came. Not with soldiers, but with precision that reached across continents. At 9:42 a.m. local time, US satellites in orbit locked onto Russian command trucks and ammo depots. Within minutes, US intel teams sent the coordinates to forward HIMARS launchers stationed just 22 miles behind the Ukrainian front. These launchers, armed with newly arrived ATAC-MS Block 2A missiles, were built to scatter 300 mini-bombs across entire fields. When the first launchers fired, it felt like the earth shook. The missiles roared over the horizon at Mach 3 and exploded above clusters of Russian supply vehicles, showering them with steel. In one strike, over a dozen Russian fuel and ammo trucks went up in massive fireballs. The explosions kept going for 12 more minutes as munitions cooked off. To the east, Ukraine launched American-supplied Switchblade 600 drones, each packed with a powerful warhead built to punch through heavy armor. From hidden bunkers, operators guided the drones onto the tops of T-90M tanks with scary precision. Drone footage caught the final moments. Missile-shaped drones diving in fast, then a bright flash and thick black smoke. By 10:30 a.m., the Russian advance had slowed down. Spotters saw at least 8 Russian tanks destroyed by switchblades in just 45 minutes. Meanwhile, HIMARS systems switched targets and struck Russian bridging gear near the Vovcha River, blowing craters into the banks and sinking multiple BMPs trying to cross. To make matters worse, Ukraine's newly arrived ENTQ-50 counter-battery radars, some of the most advanced in the world, tracked incoming Russian artillery shells and instantly located their launch points. Ukrainian M777s and French Caesar howitzers fired back immediately, dropping GPS-guided shells onto Russian gun lines within 90 seconds. By mid-afternoon, 2 full Russian artillery batteries had been wiped out. By the end of the day, intercepted Russian radio messages painted a picture of panic. Commanders shouted for fuel trucks that never arrived. Tanks were stranded in minefields with engines on fire. But Ukraine wasn't acting alone. It was guided by live US intel from space and signals intercepts. On the ground, it didn't feel like Russia versus Ukraine anymore. It felt like the hammer of American tech had dropped, sharp, fast, and unforgiving, turning Russia's best plan into a maze of wreckage. As the last echoes of HIMARS strikes faded, Ukrainian commanders launched their next move, a full armored counterattack aimed at punching through Russia's fraying front. This wasn't reckless. It was a carefully planned push, mixing NATO armor, high-tech sensors, and determined infantry. Leading the charge were Leopard 2A6 tanks, German-built monsters with 120mm cannons that can pierce 800mm of armor from 2 miles away. They advanced steadily, staying just over 12,000 yards from suspected ambush points, scanning smoke-filled tree lines for heat signatures and gun flashes. Flanking them were Swedish CV-90 infantry vehicles, packed with squads carrying Javelin and NLLO anti-tank weapons. They moved with eerie coordination, pushing toward burned-out farmhouses, dropping off troops who dug in instantly and aimed their launchers at every road and tree line. At 11:52 a.m., the first contact hit. A Russian Terminator vehicle, loaded with autocannons and missiles, swung to target a pair of CV-90s. But before it could fire, a hidden Javelin team in a collapsed silo launched a shot. The missile climbed 500 feet before diving straight into the turret. The explosion shot the hatch into the air like a manhole cover, flames shooting out like a chimney. Meanwhile, the Leopards opened fire. Their 120mm rounds, traveling over 5,700 feet per second, tore through T-80s like they were cardboard. Gunners used radar and laser rangefinders to land hit after hit, destroying 5 Russian tanks in just 20 minutes. Some burned so hot, their turrets were blown yards from their hulls. Behind them, HIMARS batteries kept firing GMLRS cluster rockets, each spreading 182 bomblets over wide areas. These rained down on Russian reserves trying to regroup on a dirt highway. Drones showed vehicles veering off-road, some crashing into ditches, desperate to escape. By early afternoon, north of Kharkov looked like a junkyard. Russia's advance wasn't just stalled, it was falling apart under non-stop fire from Ukraine and NATO gear. And every shot, every hit was coordinated through real-time drone footage and encrypted data, turning the counterattack into a lesson in modern warfare. But it wasn't over yet. High above the haze, US EC-37B Compass call planes jammed Russian communications. Whole sections of Russian radio went silent. Tank crews couldn't talk to each other. Orlan 10 drones drifted off course, cut off from their operators. On the ground, Ukraine turned on its NASA-linked radars, tied directly into American satellites. When a flight of Russian attack helicopters, Mi-28 Havocs and Ka-52 Alligators, swooped in, they were lit up instantly. Within seconds, 2 AMRAAM missiles tore into them, sending burning wreckage spinning into trees. Low-flying RQ-20 Puma drones hovered silently, scanning for tank heat signatures. Once spotted, they beamed coordinates to hidden Javelin and NLI teams. Within minutes, more missiles flew, more fire, more smoke. By 5 p.m., Russia's once proud assault force was blind and broken. Reports said over half the surviving crews shut down their tanks, hoping to hide. Stuck in metal boxes, cut off and unsure, they waited for orders that never came. This was no longer about firepower. It was about who controlled the data. And Ukraine, backed by the full weight of Western tech, owned the battlefield. By dawn the next day, Kharkov was a graveyard. T-90Ms lay scorched, their insides blackened. Recovery crews counted at least 9 destroyed T-90Ms, 6 T-80 BVMs, 7 Terminators, over 15 BMPs, and mountains of gear and rifles left behind. The numbers were bad, but the psychological damage was worse. Families in Voronezh, Belgorod, and Rostov wanted answers. Why had so many sons died? Why had elite units been wrecked by a smaller army with Western help? Even Russian state media couldn't hide it. Videos leaked, panic calls caught on radio. A hard truth had emerged. Wars today aren't won by numbers, but by speed, sight, and coordination. In just 48 hours, Ukraine, with American missiles, satellite intel, smart drones, and NATO armor, turned Russia's massive strike into a disaster. It was a warning to the world: ignore modern warfare at your own risk. When the dust settled, Kharkov told the whole story in burned-out tanks, shattered lines, and hundreds of young lives lost. Russia's big gamble collapsed under the pressure of speed, tech, and unshakable resistance. And the message was clear: in today's wars, those who see first and strike fastest win.